Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Thursday, February the 21st, 2019. Good to have you all here for our second of two shows this week. Hope your week is treating you well. Hope your day has been okay. It's a very strange news day. We have a couple of things I want to mention off the top before we get going, because they're far more important than anything we're going to talk about here tonight. First of all, one of the big sports stories of today has been the tragedy in our my neck of the woods here in Syracuse involving basketball head coach Jim Boeheim, who last night on his way home apparently accidentally struck a man, killing him. The whole incident's been ruled an accident, but still a very unfortunate situation. You can search for the whole story. I'm not going to go into it, but I just want to acknowledge it. And obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with the family of the victim. It's a horrendous situation, a horrible situation, and may he rest in peace. Now, again, our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones. A tragic situation. Our thoughts are with Jim Boeheim and his family as well, because that is not an easy situation. You know, you can only imagine how heartbroken and how much guilt he feels and how much he'll feel the rest of his life. So again, our thoughts and prayers with the victim's family and with the Boeheim family with this terrible, terrible tragedy that took place last night. And I want to acknowledge that. And I also want to acknowledge the passing today of Nick Cafardo, who was a veteran Boston Globe columnist, who really is somebody that, studied journalism and is a very big fan of sports and reads every bit of sports journalism that I can, primarily New York sports, but I also check out other columnists and sports pages as well. And I can't remember if I've actually come across Nick's work, but I want to say I have maybe once or twice, but I knew of his name. And he's 62 years old. He passed away suddenly. He had an embolism. He was covering Red Sox spring training, and he wasn't even due to work today. He just happened to show up there because he loves baseball, and he just passed away suddenly. It was a very sudden thing, and it just makes you realize how fragile life is. So a very sad situation there. And I want to express that may he rest in peace. And our thoughts and prayers go out to Nick's family, friends, and loved ones. That's again a horrible, tragic situation, horrible, tragic tragedy, and our thoughts are with his family during this time. Just suddenly he passes away. This reminds you how fragile things your life is, really. So I just wanted to note those two things off the top because, again, far more important than anything we ever talk about on the show. And we do have a show to do. We have things to talk about, but obviously what I just talked about is far more important. So we will move on, but, again, there's far more serious things going on in the world than what we're going to be talking about tonight. So that's why I try to mention those things off the top of the show, just because of the importance of them. So, all right, so as always, as we get going, let me remind you all of the ways in which you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything to tweet regarding our show. And of course, as always, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure that you like our fan page so you can interact with us and know what's going on with the show and all that cool, fun stuff. Okay, a couple of things here before we get going. I did add a couple of topics to tonight's show. I actually took one topic off and added a topic. That's really all I did, but still, there were some changes. So we're not going to do TV highlights tonight, only because I realized I didn't really have a lot of TV highlights from this week because I didn't really get the chance to check out as many things this week, so I really don't have anything to offer. So even though I promoted the segment, I really don't have anything to offer, so therefore we can't really do the segment. So there will be no TV highlights tonight. So we'll try to bring that back next week for you. Hopefully I get to some things this week. And then I also mentioned that I'd give you some of the statistics from last week's film awards. I haven't had a chance to tabulate everything yet. I got maybe halfway through. It's been a rough week, a lot of stuff going on with the family and everything. So I'll try to get those to you all next week as well. So my apologies on that. I promoted that too, but we just didn't have a chance to get. I just didn't have a chance to get to them. So that's because that's on me. I usually do that. So just didn't have a chance to get to it. So my apologies on that. But we got a lot of other stuff to get to tonight. As I mentioned, we'll do this week's edition of the Box Office Beat, which will be kind of like an expansive edition because we're going to also talk about within it Hollywood's box office crisis, because there is a crisis going on. Not the first time you've ever seen a crisis this early in the season, but it's a crisis nonetheless. So we'll talk about that. We'll give a preview of the Oscars. And I said, we've been doing this for the last, I think, couple months. Something big. We've been mixing up topics. We don't just do sports and wrestling on Tuesdays and entertainment on Thursdays anymore. Sometimes we mix things up, especially when there's a big story. And there's a big story in terms of Zion Williamson and what happened last night. We will talk about the Zion Williamson situation, maybe not as in depth as we should, but we will talk about it. Yeah, so we'll talk about that. So it's kind of like a special sports topic for tonight. And that will be our show night. So not a long show tonight, but a show nonetheless. So, and then next week, as I mentioned on Tuesday, 2 shows coming at you again. We'll be in this 2-show week schedule to the second week of March. And then we'll drop down to 1 show for the rest of March. So Tuesday, we'll do our Bracket Bugle Bubble Watch segment. Any big wrestling stuff we have to cover, which will probably be a lot because some things are coming out about WrestleMania and other things. Any other sports stuff we have to cover, we will cover. And that will probably be all we do on the show on Tuesday. And then next Thursday, we'll kind of talk about the Oscars, review them. Of course, they're coming up on Sunday. Box office being, hopefully we can do some TV highlights for you all, and anything else we can add, whether it's sports, entertainment, or wrestling, we will add to next Thursday's show. So that's what's coming up next week. All right, so let's get down to business here. I am the only person on doing the show tonight. We can do that. We're gonna do the box office stuff first. I want to leave the Zion stuff for the end because how much I talk about is going to depend on time and how far I want to go with the show tonight. So let's jump into entertainment first. So let's start with the box office beat. And we haven't done this in a couple of weeks because remember we had the film awards last week. So last time we did it, we kind of did a couple of weeks worth of box office numbers. I'm not going to go back. Obviously we're going to kind of skim whenever we do double, multiple weeks at a time. It's kind of hard to go back and go over every single little thing. But we will kind of give an overview and then we'll kind of turn the page to this coming week. So these last 2 weeks have been very big because you had, mid-February, you got Valentine's Day last week. You got, many kids on winter break and a lot of vacations and kids home and everything. So it's always a big box office time. Pretty much it's the first big box office period of the year, the middle part of February, between Valentine's Day and winter break and such, right? So now Valentine's Day landed on a Thursday this year, which, does it help the box office? It helps a little bit because it kind of sets the stage for the weekend. Sometimes when it's in the middle of the week, you have movies open in the middle of the week, and then that kind of hurts the opening weekend gross. So some movies did still open in the middle of the weekend, but I don't think it hurt the opening weekend gross as much. I don't think it hurt it as much as usual because of the placement of Valentine's Day, but I still think it might have hurt a little bit. So Valentine's Day, obviously, as I always say, if you have a movie, whether it's a romantic comedy, a romance film, if you have a movie that's geared towards more geared towards females, if you have a movie that's more geared towards males, they kind of sometimes piggyback on each other. That's kind of how that works. And then again, Valentine's Day, and then you had President's Day this week, and then the winter break. So you had different things going on. So as you look back at the last couple weeks, first off, let's look at the weekend before Valentine's Day because you had Lego Movie come out, which is one of the movies that everybody thought would, obviously Glass did well in January, and that kind of held things up. But you had the Lego Movie come out the weekend of February 8th, which is supposed to be the first big movie of the year, and it disappointed. 34.1 million its opening weekend, um, and 113.9 million worldwide total. Very disappointing. Now, look, all the the critical scores were good. People that went and saw it said it was good. What happened? I think it's as simple as oversaturation. I think the first movie exceeded expectations. Lego Batman exceeded expectations. Then they had an Ninjago movie come out, the same year as Batman did, and didn't do as well, and wasn't as good as the previous two movies, and that kind of hurt the franchise. I think the second Lego movie paid the price. Simple as that. I don't think the release date was a problem. I think it was perfect. It was set the same time as the first movie and the same time as Lego Batman. So I don't think that was an issue. I think it was simply oversaturation and the previous movie in this franchise not doing so well. Simple as that. And you had other movies that didn't do particularly well. What Men Want only came in at 18.2, which was probably a little bit more than expected. So that one's not a failure. It had $20 million budget. That one's not a total failure. I think it's over 40 million now, so it's made a profit. So that one you can kind of give a win to. Liam Neeson's Cold Pursuit only came in third with 11 million that weekend. The controversies hurt him, maybe. That were going on about William Neeson hurt, maybe. But I also don't think the film had a lot of momentum either. It was a movie that didn't get a lot of promotion until very late in the game. It's a movie that didn't have a lot of awareness. So, and it played obviously more towards older audiences probably anyway. Because I think Liam Neeson's kind of resurgence with the whole action movie thing is kind of worn off a little bit. So, I shouldn't be too surprised, but it still was a disappointment there. You had a couple movies that held up okay. The Upside dropped from second to fourth in its fifth week with a little over 7 million. Not too bad for its fifth week. And you had Glass drop from first to fifth with 6.2 million in its fourth week. But that movie's done very, very well. So there's nothing really to concern yourself with there. The Prodigy was another new release. It did not do very well at all. 5.8 million, but it's only a $6 million budget. So not much loss there. Green Book had a decent week at 3.4 million, holding up taking pretty much the only awards season movie that did close enough to the top to over 5 million to mention. Outside of that, none of the big awards movies were anywhere close. I mean, what's what called Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, where they came in with 3 million, but that one's not the type of. I mean, it's a movie that's going to win the Oscar. We all know that, but so I guess you can consider it, but at the same time, I'm talking about movies like Green Book and The Favorite and stuff like that. Of all those movies, Green Book was the only one that registered anything worth noting. So, so that's the story for the weekend of February 8th. Last weekend, of course, a very big weekend, President's Day weekend, again, the back half of Valentine's Day. How did everything go? Well, you had a 3-day and a 4-day. Over the 3-day, Alita Battle Angel came in with 33.5 million, which is not great. I'm not surprised because I didn't think the movie had good momentum. I don't think the critics were on board with it. It's a movie that's been in production and development for a very, very long time. Did not have a lot of anticipation. I said it had a chance to flop, and it basically did. So for the 4 days, it did 33.5 million. For the 3 days, it did 28.5. Not great. Lego Movie did okay. For the 3-day, did 20.8. For the 4-day, did 27.7. It's not too bad. But still, only 113.9 million so far worldwide. It's not great for that movie. One of the big Valentine's Day movies was Isn't It Romantic? Obviously, Alita appealed more to male audiences. Isn't It Romantic appealed more towards women. Came in with 16.6 million, which isn't too bad for that movie. That's for the 4-day. For the 3-day, it did 14.2. It's not too bad. What Men Want came in fourth for the 3-day with 10.6 million. For the 4-day, came in with 12.2 million. Not bad. Again, Happy Death Day, which was kind of like the merging of both the male and female audiences, kind of appealing to both sides. 9.4 million for the 3-day. $11 million for the four, which isn't too bad. It's had a $9 million budget, and that's what these movies are: cheap movies to make and just try to make a profit, and it did that. So nothing ventured, not much gain, but still a profit. So Cold Pursuit um, was next in line for the 3 day with 5.9 million. For the 4 day, it pulled in 6.9 million. And then you had The Upside in seventh for the 3 day with 5.4 million, and in seventh for the 4 day with 6.9 million. Everything else finished under 5 million for the 3 day. And then for the 4 day, you had Glass finished close to 5 million with 4.6 million in eighth, but nothing else come any closer. So not great. Again, Alita ends up basically being a flop. It's got a $170 million budget, doesn't even come close. So that ends up being a flop. Lego Movie did okay. I think it kind of offset some of the failures of the first week, but still not doing great. Doing well enough, but not great. Isn't It Romantic did fine. What Men Wants did okay. Happy Death Day did, back considering its budget, did okay. And then you had Cold Pursuit, which has not been good. And that's it. That's the story. So February hasn't been great, and now we're gonna get excited to do a general overview. Now we move on to what's gonna happen this weekend. And you got two new releases. One that's on the same plane as the Lego Movie as being one of the bigger releases of the year, at least in the early part of the year, and that is How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, an animation film from Universal, opening in 4,259 theaters. It's already made 181.2 million worldwide, so it's off to a good start there. It puts it already over its budget. Very high expectation that this movie can produce a $40 to $50 million opening weekend. Even though it's on the back end of winter break and coming out of February, that it's given the fact that, given how the box office has struggled so far this year, other than Glass probably, and Lego Movie hasn't done as well. I think that this movie will probably do more on the higher end. If it doesn't, then boy, they really can't wait for Captain Marvel to come out. I think they already can, but still. But I think this movie will probably clear at least 40 million, which would probably be good enough. You'd expect, I mean, if you can get over 50, that would be great. But you want to get at least over 40, I think. And I think it will. So, especially being the last of this franchise. So that is the big release this weekend. A lot of hopes on it for the box office. And then the only other movie we have coming out, we have two movies. One that's expanding. That movie is Fighting with My Family, a comedy drama from MGM, opening in 2,711 theaters. Directed and written by Stephen Merchant, and starring Stephen Merchant. Also, The Rock is in it, as well as Lena Headey, Vince Vaughn. This is the story of WWE wrestler Paige. It's a project that The Rock has been working on for quite a while. Obviously, opening in limited release. It's got some momentum. It's got some traction. You could see it pulling in about around 10 million or so. I can't see it doing much more than that, but no factor. And then you have a drama called Run the Race from Roadside Attractions, opening in 854 theaters, PG. It's a Christian film. Again, if it makes a 1.5, 2 million, that'll be good for it. So not much expected that one. So it's really all about How to Train Your Dragon, which again I think will come in between 40 and 50 million. If it can clear 50 million, then you're in great shape. If it gets above 40, then you're okay enough. Other than that, I think there'll be a drop off after that. I think after that you'll drop down. I think Lego Movie will probably come in second based on how things are holding. I think Alita is going to drop considerably. And look, the bottom line is nobody. Again, that movie was in development hell. Nobody really cared about the movie. Nobody was anticipating the movie. That's as simple as that. Lego Movie was more a case of oversaturation. But Lego Movie, I think, will still hold up better than any of the other movies. And I think it'll pull in about maybe 13, 14 million, which would be good enough for second, I believe. After that, I think you'll see Alita around 10. Maybe Fighting with Your Family around 9, 8.5, 9. Isn't It Romantic? I think will drop very highly because of the fact Valentine's Day is over. That's strictly kind of like that kind of movie. When you release a movie like that around that time, it's usually very front loaded and it's usually more suitable for Valentine's Day anyway. So probably around 7 million. What Men Want around 6.5, probably be very close between those two. And I think Happy Death Day will be right around 5 million. I think everything else will finish under 5 million. So it won't be a great weekend at the box office. But if you can get How to Train Your Dragon to perform as expected, and I think you call it a win, and then you move on to March and call it a day. So once you get beyond this weekend, that's the last weekend of February, the winter box office season coming to an end. You're now moving to the spring, which we basically now call, the prequel to the summer. March has become a very big month in the past decade in the box office, and next weekend you do have a couple movies that should do okay. They're not going to be huge money makers. Greta, a drama thriller from Focus, features entire periods of Medea family funeral, which is the last of the Medea stories according to him. So that they'll both factor, but they won't do huge numbers. But the next weekend will be the start of things at the box office as Captain Marvel, Marvel and Disney's latest film, will be released. And that is expected to kind of break. Um, that is expected to kind of break the doldrums at the box office. And look, Hollywood needs it. It really does. So things will pick up in a few weeks here. And look, I'm going to be honest. This is probably going to be one of the weaker Marches in recent memory. You do have Captain Marvel, and you have Dumbo at the end, but you really don't have a whole lot in between. So you're going to really rely on those two movies to carry things for them. Um, and look, it's this is setting up. Um, as we flip now to what I talked about in the show description, which is the box office crisis. If you look at what's going on here, and we've seen this before, where the early part of the year might end up being down. That usually means that the summer and the holiday movie season will be up. When we've seen a better winter, early part of the year and spring, um, sometimes you've seen some underperformance in summer and during the holiday movie season. Why is that? Because sometimes I've told people this over and over. It might seem stupid, but here's the thing: people only have so much money, and if they blow through that money early part of the year or at different parts of the year, okay, like let's say the fall ends up having a lot of bigger movies than expected. That means you might not have enough money left over during the holidays to go see the big holiday movies. If the winter and the early part of the year has more bigger movies, then you might not have as much money left over for the summer movies. See what I'm saying? It has to balance out somehow, and there are a lot of big summer movies this year. Last year, I thought wasn't. I mean, there were a number of big movies, but I thought there was enough gaps. This year, I don't think there's any gaps, and so I think that this summer is setting up to really make up the difference on the early part of the year. Same with the holiday movie season. So I don't think you're going to have to. Overall, I think this is going to end up being a good year at the box office. But yes, it is off to a slow start. If you didn't have Glass in January, I hate to see where you'd be. But if Captain Marvel does its thing in March and Dumbo does its thing in the back half of March, March will end up being okay. If both of those movies underperform somehow though, then they're gonna really be waiting for Avengers Endgame. They'll be begging for it at that point. Um, Look, this is something this is not something that we haven't seen before. These things ebb and flow. It tends to be off and on. So we're having a rough winter box office this year, right? Next year will probably be a good one, which means it'll be either a down summer and a down holiday movie season, or a down March, and then you pick things up in spring. These things ebb and flow. You look back at the last decade, which is when I really look. That's the decade I really look at because that's the current form we're at the box office, because obviously the box office has changed. The way things are done has changed. You have big movies coming out all year round. It's not just concentrated to summer and not just concentrated to the holiday movie season. March has become a big month. September and October are huge months now. January sometimes has some surprise hits. It's a different game now. It's a different landscape. So you have to really look at the last 10 years to look at the patterns and the trends. And like I said, these things ebb and flow. This year, January and February were down. March might end up being down despite two big tent poles. But that might mean a better summer and a better holiday movie season. And then next year could flip flop. It's the way these things go. I mean, you can't panic. You can't freak out if you're Hollywood, because these things happen. And honestly, if you look at the offerings in January, and you look at the offerings in February, and you look at even the offerings in March, this none of this should come as a surprise. The only true surprise that Lego Movie has underperformed. I think that's something that's kind of that's when the panic set in for high. Like, oh God, that was supposed to help get us through February. Now we need How to Train Your Dragon to do something and see if it can make up the difference. And otherwise, it's oh well, okay, at least we got Captain Marvel in 2 weeks. But what if Captain Marvel underperforms? What if Dumbo doesn't do so? Like, what do we do? So there's all this wonderment now. So it's all this wonderment now. All this like it's just I mean all this negativity and all this. Well, wait a minute. No, what if things don't get better until the end of April when Avengers Endgame comes out? Then we only got the summer, the summer movies, and then what? We're gonna go back. We're gonna go into September, only having 3 months of good box office returns, and then we have to wait for the holidays again. Because here's the thing that people don't realize: you do need the in between periods to do at least decent. You do need other movies. You need sleeper hits. You do need those gaps to be filled. Otherwise, it ain't gonna end up being a very it's not gonna be a very good year. So, How to Train Your Dragon does need to do well this weekend. Captain Marvel and Dumbo need to do as expected, if not better. You need some summer movies to that maybe you didn't put a lot of stock into surprise, maybe even exceed expectations to make up the difference of what's happened in these first early parts of in the early parts of 2019. Very important. Otherwise, you look back when you look at the end of the year, they're going to say, "Well, wait a minute. Okay, the summer might have done its part. The holidays might have done their part, but before the summer, before the holidays, was so far down, kind of negated the progress you made during those prime periods of the year at the box office." So it is a crisis. It's certainly not one that's unheard of. It's certainly not one that we never had before. It's certainly not really something that was out of the realm given what was being offered. Again, though, I just think the fact that Lego Movie did not do as well is kind of the trigger to this. It's like, oh, okay, Glass exceeded expectations. Oh, it's not going to be so bad. Now we got Lego Movie, got How to Train Your Dragon, maybe a couple other movies will surprise in between, and away we go. We get to March and things will be okay. It's not the best March, but there's enough there to kind of get us through into summer, and away you go. But then Lego Movie underperforms, and that's like, uh-oh. Now, wait, what if some of these other movies underperform? What if people are just waiting for the summer because there's so many big movies? There's a fear. There is a fear. And it makes me laugh because for all the complaining that you heard some parts of Hollywood um, doing over these last few years about comic book movies and what Disney's doing and all the franchises and cinematic universes and how, oh, there's no room for creativity. There's too many franchises. There's too many comic book movies. Oh, they're killing Hollywood. Guess what? They're keeping Hollywood afloat. Because look at what happens during the periods when you don't have these movies. The box office crashes and burns. And before somebody says, well, wait a minute, it's the reason why the box office isn't doing so well is because people are saving their money for when those big movies come out. So not more willing, they don't have that extra money. They're not willing to spend that money to go take a chance on a movie that's not part of a franchise or not a comic book movie or not a big blockbuster type movie. Here's the thing, okay? I've always said this. If people are interested in your movie, they're interested in your movie, no matter what kind of movie it is. If you strike a chord, if you resonate, they will come see your movie. Competition or not competition. Might not make as much as you probably would like, but it'll get seen. and maybe it can gain some momentum and take off in other forms on DVD or Blu-ray, or maybe it can get a bigger release, or maybe it can, you know, we go on and on. I've seen it before where a movie doesn't do particularly well in its first weekend, and then a couple people see it, and the right people start mentioning it, and then away it takes on a life of its own, and it ends up doing okay numbers or better than you would ever expect for a movie of that type. So word of mouth can be a strong thing, better than even advertisement somehow sometimes on TV or in magazines or on the internet. Which word of mouth now is pretty much given as on the internet and in other forms, but um, internet or just talking to people on this in public, that's kind of what it's always been. But more internet now helps get word of mouth and helps to spread. Just probably the biggest form of advertisement for a movie nowadays. But like I said, it's very important that you know um lost my train of thought. Wow. um these movies, these big budget movies, these franchises, these comics, they're very important. They're the reason why some of these studios can make those smaller budget movies, can make those indie movies, can make those awards film festival type movies. They are the reason. You need those movies. When you don't have them, look what happens. Like I said, people will see your movies if they really truly want to see those movies. They will. You can't. I mean, look. Do people save their money? Oh, I can't see that. I'm not going to go see that movie. Take a chance on that movie or take a chance on any movie right now because I want to save my money. So I can go see Avengers. So I can go see Godzilla. Whatever. So it's one of those things where people. Hang on, folks. I gotta step away real quick. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, folks. Had to step away. I got distracted. Live. This is again live podcasting. My dog was kind of making the rounds here and distracting me, and I couldn't. I was trying to figure out whether she actually had to go out or not, and she did. So that's kind of what I had to do. So my apologies for that. That's why I was kind of all over the place there for a few moments. Um, but yeah, so that it's yes, it can make a difference that they're saving money for another movie, and that's maybe they're not willing to go to the movie theaters until that time period, um, or they don't choose your movie because they want to choose another movie. That does happen. But again, if your movie strikes enough of a chord, they might be able to get to that movie eventually in some way, shape, or form. So it's not like it can keep them permanently from ever seeing your movie. So you do need those movies. Because especially since again, those movies might not get made if you don't have the big budget movies to bring money into those studios to be able to fund those other projects. So um, again, it's just the landscape of film now. And do you need to? Can you have those movies all year round? No, but you do usually like. I've said this. It's always interesting to me, the landscape, the way that things are set up now. Probably the last decade, you see January has become a month where the studios kind of throw things out there. Like, okay, let's see. Maybe something will surprise us. Ends up usually being a quieter month, but it gives you a lot of low budget type movies, and let's see what happens. February, you get a couple big movies on Valentine's Day, winter break, and then things quiet down. And March is a huge month, not so much this year. Got a couple movies, that's about it. April, kind of things quiet down a little bit, and then now the end of April is becoming a big thing because the May movie, the first week of May movies like Avengers movies have moved up to the last week of April, so summer kind of starts early. But then you get into the May movies, which are, again, the first month of summer, huge. June's huge. July's huge. August has become a little bit quieter, but this year might not be so much. And then, around Labor Day, things quiet down. September sometimes has some big things at the end of the month as you build into October. October is usually a pretty solid month. And then you got November and December, which are big months. So, realistically speaking, January is really the only month that you don't usually have any really big true blockbusters. We'll see how long that lasts, because eventually I think you're going to see a movie or two stake out January and say, hey, I'm not going to be afraid to only be a few weeks after the holidays. I'm not going to be afraid to be released with all these awards season movies. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take a chance, because it's a month where there's not a lot of competition. And then eventually, if one movie goes into January and does well, then you're going to see a bunch of movies do it. And then the game changes again. And then you don't have any lulls during the year. You have big movies all year round. I mean, it already basically is, but January kind of seems to be exempt so far. So this is a crisis, but it's a crisis that's going to end. It could get better this weekend with How to Train Your Dragon. It won't get hugely better, because even if that movie does what it's supposed to do, the rest of the box office ain't going to be that great. But in a couple weeks, when Captain Marvel comes out, things will start to pick up again. And then Dumbo, and then you'll start to build towards summer. But it's still not going to be great, because the big number is going to be concentrated to only a few movies. You ain't going to have enough holdovers doing well enough to raise the box office that much. So that you won't see a huge impact and a much better, overall much better trend until really summer now. Until, Avengers Endgame comes out, and then you start to filter in more of those big movies. So really, it's not going to be to the end of May. But at least when a movie like Avengers comes out and it pulls in a $250 million opening weekend, that's more than enough to make up for all the other movies. It's really like summer's a different animal, because when you start getting into $100 million, at least minimum $100 million openings, then you can make up the difference on bad holdovers. Like if you have a movie that's over $100 million in one weekend, and everything else is under 20 million, you don't really care so much, because that 100 million makes it all up. But in the big, like this weekend, let's say How to Train Your Dragon makes 50 million, and everything else makes under 20, doesn't make up that much. Even with How to Train Your Dragon doing pretty well. So, again, it's really going to be, Captain Marvel will probably pull in about 120, 130, so that will help. Dumbo could maybe pull in about 89. It won't help as much, but it's not too bad. Really, you got to get over 100 million to really be able to balance off a lot of bad holdovers and a lot of movies that are just not doing great. So Captain Marvel might do that for a little bit, but really it's not going to be until the summer movie season starts that one movie can basically hold up the box office and make up for bad performances. So it's a crisis. It will end eventually, but the first quarter of the year is not going to look great. Even if Captain Marvel, How to Train Your Dragon, and Dumbo do well enough, or even exceed expectations, it might still not look great. But it will get better. And it just puts even more pressure on the summer and the holiday movie season to perform. and maybe even exceed expectations, because otherwise this year ends up being down. And it's a year that people thought would be record breaking. And so far, it's not on pace to do that. But again, it was thought to be record breaking because of the prime box office periods. But now you're expecting maybe more out of those prime box office periods than even was expected. Can you get it? It's a good chance you can. But who knows? Who knows? Competition's always a big thing. Too many movies at once can eat up each other a little bit too, and cannibalize each other a little bit too. So we'll see what happens. But right now it's a crisis, and might get a little better this weekend. Then it'll calm down again. Might get a little bit better a couple times in March, but really until summer, it's just not going to break out of it. The box office is just not. So we talked enough about box office numbers and you know, underperforming and overperforming. It's time to talk about something else related to film, and that is award season and the Oscars. The award season will come to its climactic end this Sunday as the Academy Awards will take place. It's been a very, very controversial buildup, from the Kevin Hart controversy to the popular movie controversy to all the stuff with, the musical performances and whether they will be or will not be, and having no host, and cutting 4 awards from the show, only to have Uproar bring those awards back. Just it's been one thing after the other. The Academy's been backtracking the entire season. I will say this much. I see a lot of people saying this is probably one of the worst Oscars ever and will be well rated. I don't think it will be. I think it'll be much higher rated than last year for 3 reasons. One, because of these controversies. People like to watch a train wreck. People are going to tune into this broadcast to see how it all turns out after everything that's happened. Just out of curiosity. You're going to get people right away. That's out of curiosity to see how they handle this, because it's been a long time since they not had a host. That's one reason. The other reason, you do have enough popular movies represented, probably more so than you've had in years. Black Panther, A Star is Born, Bohemian Rhapsody, the animated films that are nominated. This is a grouping that has a lot of people have seen these movies, a lot of these movies, and that's going to help. That does help. And a lot of the actors and actresses that are nominated are name brand actors and actresses that have followings and that people know, and they star in movies that might have been seen, have probably been more seen than a lot in previous years. That's big too. And the third reason, a lot of these races are wide open. Now, most of the acting races aren't, although some things are getting interesting in the supporting categories and the lead actress categories. Lead actor looks like it's tied up, but even that might have, you got Christian Bale and Rami Malek. That might be some of it, but that one looks like almost like the most one-sided race at this point. The best actress race looks like it's tightening up. Might be down to 3 instead of 2. Olivia Colman looks like she might get more support than we all thought. Supporting races are getting interesting now too. It might not be a foregone conclusion that Regina King and Masahiro Ali win. So those races look like they're time too. So you might see some surprises. And then there's Best Picture. Who knows what's going to win? Do they give Roma the award and give an award to Netflix? A foreign language film and a film that didn't get a theatrical release? The Academy want to do that? There's controversies with Green Book. Black Panther. Do they give it to Black Panther, a comic book movie, which they've never done before? Never even nominated one before, really. What about A Star is Born, a movie that's been done 1,000,000 times? The Lady Gaga thing. She probably will win original song. Will she win Best Actress? They have storylines. They have a great crew of animated films that were very, well seen and well received. They obviously have all the controversies, which play into some compelling storylines as well. some couple tight races that are tight, seem like they're tightening up as you get closer to the awards. They have drama. They have interesting things going on. I think this could be a compelling, interesting Oscars that I think will end up being a much more viewed event than last year. And I think if they can keep the politics out of it, that will help too. As far as the races go, I think again I said I think Best Actor is pretty much sewn up. Although you can't totally write off Christian Bale. I think Rami Malek has it. I'm pretty sure that Glenn Close will probably win, but I think it's very tight with her and Lady Gaga. Some people think there could be a tie. It's just interesting to me how Olivia Colman seems like she's gotten has more support. That could be key because that could be taking votes away from somebody else. So that could end up deciding the vote between Glenn and Lady Gaga. I don't think Olivia Colman will have enough support to win, but she could end up taking support from somebody else and deciding that. But I think Glenn Close is probably the slim favorite. I still think Ali and Regina, Master Ali and Regina King are the favorites in the supporting categories, but I think those races have tightened up. I could see Richard Grant winning supporting actor. Rachel Weisz, I could see winning supporting actress now. So I think those races have gotten interesting. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is clear, far and away going to win animated. Don't even ask me about, the screenplay awards and everything. I have no idea because I think those are very close races as well. Best Picture, first time in a long time, I don't have a clue. If you had to, if you had to ask me for favorites, I think there are three. I think Roma is the slim overall favorite. I think Green Book is probably second. And I think Black Panther is probably third. And I think Black Panther is probably third because I could see there being a groundswell of support for that film for all it did, for the impact it had, and because they know it's the movie that made the most money, and maybe they want to make a statement and say, hey, look, we're going to award the bigger budget movies too. So I think all that could play into that. The thing that Roma's obviously a beautiful movie. I think Alfonso Cuarón, director, probably. I think he's the favorite there. Roma's, maybe they want to make a statement with Roma and say foreign language film, Netflix. This is gonna be a statement. But I also wonder if they want to go that far. Do they want to give the Oscar Best Picture to a movie that didn't get a theatrical release? They want to give it to a foreign language film because let's be honest here, it's on Netflix, but how many people probably seen it? Because they've gotten enough flack for awarding films that you forget about as soon as they win the Oscar. So do they want to take that risk with Roma again, and have basically after after the Oscar people forget Roma even exists? Do you want to have that problem? Do you want to give it to a Netflix movie? And there's Green Book and the controversy surrounding that. Do you want to give it to that film? So I think those are the three favorites. I'd be shocked if anything else won. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting race. And I think next week when we're sitting here, we're going to be having a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. I think it's going to be one of the more interesting, intriguing Oscars that we've had in a long, long time. I can't remember the last time I actually was this, interested. Quite frankly, I'm usually interested, but I'm legitimately I feel like there's some drama here. I feel like this is going to change things for the Academy Awards. I really do. I feel like there could be a lot of history made. I feel like this could be a defining moment for the Academy Awards. They really need to put on a good show. It needs to be an efficient show. And I think that they need to show that they're willing to award, not only popular films, but the right films that are, nominated. I think they could have a really good night if they keep politics out and, depending on the winners, if the winners end up being, from movies that resonate, this could end up being the turning point for the Academy Awards because they've been on a downturn for a very long time. And it's funny, when we started this show 9 years ago, I used to get mail from people saying, most people supported our thoughts on the Oscars, and they don't award the best in film. They're very stuck up and pretentious, and they don't realize that sometimes the best movies of the year are blockbusters, that kind of thing. But we had a lot of mail from people too, telling us, well, you award the best in film, and oftentimes popcorn movies and blockbusters are not good films. They're not good enough to be awarded. That's why they're not nominated. But in the last decade, you've seen the game change. And now people realize there needs to be changes, and this year's Oscars can go a long way towards cementing that. You've seen changes over the last few years. It has gotten better, but it's been a very slow crawl. Sunday could go a long way towards speeding that process up and really changing it enough to really make a noticeable difference. So Sunday could be very interesting, and I look forward to checking it out. And obviously, we'll talk about the fallout and all the big storylines and big happenings from the Oscars. We'll talk about it all next week on next Thursday's show. And I think we have a lot to talk about. I really, really do. So we've done a lot of movie talk tonight. We've done a lot in the entertainment realm, obviously. Again, we're not going to do TV highlights and the Film Awards statistics I'll get to next week. So TV highlights and Film Awards statistics I'll get to next Thursday, probably. I will get to them next Thursday. And so we'll leave all that stuff alone for now. So we now jump out of entertainment. We're going to jump to sports, which will be the end of our show tonight. That's the only thing we have left. Before we get to that, I have to step away real quick because I got to get the dog. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So thank you for indulging me, allowing me to do that. Dog's back in now. She did her business, so we're all good. And let's finish things off here tonight by jumping into sports and talking about Zion Williamson here tonight. Obviously, last night was a complete letdown. I mentioned Duke on Tuesday's show. We kind of previewed the week in college basketball, a lot of big games, including Duke and Carolina. That was probably the biggest, and everybody was hyped for that game for one of the biggest reasons, of course, Zion Williamson and how, he's obviously meant tremendous amounts of the college basketball season. It means a lot to the NBA draft. He's the biggest story in basketball probably right now, one of them. And 36 seconds into last night's game, he blows out his shoe. He just plants his foot, shoe basically blows out, and he gets hurt. He grabs the back of his knee. He leaves the game, and it was such an odd thing because I was watching the game, and as I was watching the game, I look at him, I'm like, he doesn't seem like it almost seemed like something where he just like, oh, I just tweak something, I'll be okay. Goes to the bench, and he doesn't seem like he's in a whole lot of pain. And then all of a sudden he's taken to the locker room, and then you find out later he's not coming back. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, I guess it's not the first time I've seen something like that happen where somebody didn't seem like they're in pain, and later on you find out they tore an ACL. Sometimes you're kind of in shock. You don't really feel it. It's adrenaline. So as soon as I saw that he wasn't coming back, I'm like, oh God, this must be serious. And then you find out it's just a sprained knee. So look, the guy's a freak athlete. Maybe it doesn't think the same way. I mean, look, it's now in hindsight, it's obvious what happened. It was precautionary. He probably could have played. They don't want him to. He probably won't play on Saturday. They probably won't bring him back for at least a solid week, just to be on the safe side, because Duke has national championship aspirations. They're not going to work, no matter how hyped last night's game was, how much of a letdown it was for the crowd. And how many complaints they're probably getting from people that spent a ton of money on tickets and didn't get their money's worth, and the game ended up being a blowout, whatever. Maybe they don't win the ACC regular season because of it. Maybe they don't even win the ACC tournament because of it, but they're not going to worry about that. Duke, there's been years where Duke hasn't won those things, and they won the national championship. They're worried about the national championship, and they're also probably worried about this kid's future. So that's the primary concerns. They're not going to think about the other stuff. So I get that. Okay, I get that. So with that in mind, you understand maybe why they did what they did. And here's the other thing, too. For anybody that's out there thinking that, Duke should have still been able to find some way to win the game, be competitive, and that give up Zion, you're idiots. Sorry, you're idiots. I was my co-host Mike. I was texting with today, and he sent me a message. He's like, "Well, more excuses from Duke." I said, "Okay, listen. There have been times this year, like when Duke played Syracuse, and they lost that game. They didn't have Radish and they didn't have Trae Young. They lost Trae Young early in that game. Trae Young's their best defender. It made things difficult for them, especially when they're already without Radish, for the best shooter. Okay, it made things difficult because you can't plan for that. However, they still had Zion Williamson, they still had RJ Barron, they had a host of role players. They still had enough there to beat Syracuse because they're a better team than Syracuse. With just flat out, they're superior. Okay, so that's a little bit of a different circumstance. Against North Carolina last night, North Carolina is the more experienced team. They have 3 or 4 really good scorers. They have a post presence in May that, while not somebody that was very high regarded early on, can really put up good numbers in a good matchup. They are a team that likes to score in the paint. And when you eliminate Zion Williamson, is because he's Duke's only good post presence that they have. And Duke is not a 3-point shooting team this year. All right, they rely very heavily on the paint. And if their number one guy in the paint, that opens things up for them. Their best player in college basketball is not out there against North Carolina. I said they do not have a chance to win. Here's the thing. Without Zion Williamson, if you don't play Saturday against Syracuse, Syracuse is going to win at home. All right, I will tell you right now, Duke will not be a single ranked ACC team without Zion Williamson. They won't. I'm sorry, they won't. They're not good enough. Yes, they have other, potential lottery picks on that team. But people don't realize how, just because you got those players, because you got those lottery picks, those guys, those high regarded top players, top recruits. Just because you got them does not mean that you can still find ways to win games that you're not in games. North Carolina's a better team. When Duke doesn't have Zion Williamson, they're the better team. It becomes a matchup issue. It becomes a bigger difference. It becomes a big difference. It changes the whole complexion of the game. If Duke had another post presence besides Zion, then yes, it would have been. I would have probably maybe agreed. But they don't. And look, here's the other thing. If Zion had played that entire game last night, I'm not convinced Duke would have won either. They shot the ball very poorly. But they don't have a chance without him. With him, they have a very good chance. It's anybody that sits there and goes, well, they still had RJ Barron, they had Radish, and they had Trae. Listen, here's the thing, folks. Anybody that sits there and says, without Zion last night, they just found a way to win, doesn't know basketball, has no idea what the hell they're talking about. They're just being a Duke hater. And yes, I like Duke, but I don't apologize for the loss. I'm a big Syracuse fan. When Syracuse loses, I don't make excuses. I call it like I see it. They lose focus. They don't play well. Blah, 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 blah. Let me ask you a question, and I know this is pros versus college, so it's a little bit different. But let's think back to the Miami Heat teams with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Let's say LeBron's hurt, misses 15 games. Miami still has Dwayne Wade, still has Chris Bosh, and a host of very solid, good role players. Role players, right? Now, do you still think without LeBron James that they should have a pretty solid record in those 15 games without him? When in the midst of those 15 games, they're probably playing some really good teams, particularly out west. Do you think they could still beat teams like back then? Back then you figured the Spurs were still the Spurs, like with Duncan and Ginobili and that. Do you think they could beat a team like the Spurs without LeBron James on that team, or the Golden State Warriors without LeBron James on that team? No, you want to know why? Not because Wade's not good, not because Bosh isn't good, but because LeBron is the guy that makes the machine go. He, you know, he's the playmaker. Opens things up on the floor. Zion Williamson makes the machine go this year for Duke. He opens things up on the floor for the other players. He makes the guys around him better just being on the floor. And that's why him not being there last night, that was it for Duke. The fact that they even got close at all after that is a testament to how much talent they have. And before somebody says, well, that means that they should still find a way to win. No, not against North Carolina. North Carolina is not a bad team. North Carolina, in my opinion, is probably a top 5 team. They're probably the most experienced team in the country. Or one of them. Experience matters. And they're talented. They're very good. I know people have slept on them because so much focus has been on Duke and Virginia, but they're good. So I don't usually come right out and call people. I shouldn't call people idiots, but it's idiotic to think that without Zion Williamson that they should have still found a way to win last night. It really is. Now, look, all this nonsense about Nike and the shoes and um um. Hang on, folks. I gotta step away. Sorry about that, folks. My dog was barking to the point where I couldn't really. I didn't think you all could hear me, so I wanted to make sure I took care of that for you all so you could hear. 'Cause she was barking pretty loudly. So, and it's distracting to me, but obviously to you all trying to listen and watch. So I want to make sure I dealt with that. So my apologies. I didn't mean to step away again. Kind of derails momentum on the show. So I hate to do that, but again, I'm the only one here. What if Mike was here? He could continue on, but I'm the only one here, and we don't have commercial breaks. What else am I supposed to do? So right back to the nonsense with Nike. The stocks dropped, and everybody's freaking out on Nike and all this other stuff. I don't want to talk about that stuff. Okay, guys are freak athletes. Stuff like this happens. Shoes sometimes do this. It happens. Okay, I don't. To me, that's not even a big part of it. What has become a big part of it, though, and it's interesting because this was going on even before last night's injury with Don, which I think you can classify as a scare because he's more than likely fine, which we find out later that he's not. But they did not diagnose with a grade 1 knee sprain. So that seems like a minor thing that maybe he misses a week and then he's back to playing. But you've been hearing over the last few weeks, because obviously it's a foregone conclusion he'll be the number 1 pick in the draft. And I've seen people say, "Oh, at the beginning of the season he was number 5." I don't understand. I never heard anybody say that Zion Williamson was the 5th pick in the draft going into the season. He was always, to me, from everything I saw, regarded as the best player in college and the guy who will be the number 1 pick in the draft. So I really don't know where all this, he was only going to be the 5th pick in the draft, comes from. But either way, what he's done this year has solidified him as the number 1 pick. Okay? But you heard over the last few weeks that, he's running an injury risk. Maybe he should shut it down. Maybe he shouldn't play for the rest of the year. A lot of people would say that. I think Scottie Pippen was one of the people who I respect, all right? But he's wrong. A lot of people say, Scottie Pippen said it. And he had other people say it, other people in the NBA and other basketball pronouncers say it too. He should not play the rest of the season. What happens if he gets hurt? I know he's got insurance and, he can't drop below 15 in the draft. And, there's a feeling that even if he got hurt, he shouldn't drop below 2nd, which to me speaks volumes because that alone should make you feel good even if you get hurt. But, what happens if he's never the same afterwards? Here's the thing, folks, okay? I've never understood this logic. I can understand in football, college football. I can't understand in basketball because here's the thing. In any sport even, really, but I guess in basketball especially, the risk you take when you go out there. You can get hurt in practice. You can get hurt training. Let's say you sit out the rest of the year. Let's say you never even played college and you sit out and you say, "I'm not going to do anything until next year." You can get hurt just working out in the gym. You can get hurt just shooting hoops in the gym. You get hurt. Look at John Wall. He tore his Achilles in his house. So this whole thing, shut it down, get hurt, you're at risk to get hurt. You're at risk to get hurt no matter what. Okay? We're all at risk. I could get hurt stepping outside my front door and fall on the steps. Okay? This stuff happens. That's stupid. You play basketball. You that's what you do. That's what you do. Now we can get into all the particulars of NCAA. There should, that they make all this money and they're not fair to play. We all know that. We talked about the NCAA and how corrupt it is and how unfair they are to the players. We all know that. We talked about that and how they should change the thing. There shouldn't be one and done. They should be allowed. It's allowed in other sports. You got a choice. You can go right out of high school to the pros. We all know that the rule sucks and it's stupid. It's only there to protect the NBA because they want guys to go to college for a year and get more polished and protects them against having too many Kwame Browns. Okay, we all understand all this. Okay, but here's the thing. You know the rule, whether you like it or not. You know the rule. You know the rule. So don't act. I mean, this is not something that should be hard to understand. Sorry about that, folks. That time I actually hit the wrong button, so we can't get anything right tonight between the barking dog and all the interruptions. I apologize for that. Um, can't seem to get any to adjust something, and I messed up. But anyway, back to what I was saying. You know the rule. You know what you signed up for. And look, I don't think Zion's going to stop playing. All right, the kid seems to love playing. He wanted to come to Duke. He wants to try to win a national championship. I don't think he's going to do this. Okay, he's not the type of kid. I don't think he's going to do this. But all these people that are suggesting it, all right, and maybe a part of it is, they don't understand. Maybe maybe they didn't win a national championship in their college career. Maybe they didn't even go. Maybe they don't understand the importance of. Here's the thing: those guys that did do it, they got that memory. They tried to win that shit. Sometimes you learn a lot. You don't think Zion's learning from Mike Krzyzewski? You don't think he's become a better player? You don't think the experience of going through March Madness and learning how to win and what it takes to win a championship is crucial? I mean, even though I don't think they should push the one and done rule, I do think it could help to be in that winning environment and to learn those things, those critical skills of being in on a team that's pushing for a championship in high pressure situations. It can make you a better player. You're gonna be a better teammate. I mean, what do you tell your teammates if Zion does decide to do something like that and say I'm not gonna I'm gonna sit, I'm not gonna play the rest of the year? What do you tell the rest of your teammates that you bonded with this season? That you signed up, you all signed up together. Oh, I'm gonna win a national championship. What do you tell them? My career is more important than you all. Their dream might be to win a national. That might be their only chance to do anything like that. They might not. They're not all going to go to the pros. And then if he sits and RJ Barrett's like, well, why can't I sit? I mean, see what I'm saying? That it opens up a can of worms and it causes problems. It's stupid. I'm sorry. It's dumb. Once you commit to the college, then that's what you do. That's what you do. Because I know some people. It's like, well, it's his career and it's for his family and his wife. He's endangering all that by playing. Well, guess what? If he shuts it down for the year, the guy's gonna practice. He's gonna have to work. He's endangering all that by stepping foot at the 7 foot on a court at the combine. He could injure a leg there. It's so much focus is always on the games. But you can get injured in practice. You can get injured training. So what are you gonna do? Not do anything? What, you gonna live in a bubble? Come on now. I don't think people. I honestly don't think people understand how significant it can be to be in college for that 1 year and how much you can learn as a basketball player. Forget about the education part because we know once you get out of the first semester, it's parents don't even have to go to class. Okay, we know that from an athlete standpoint. Okay, we know that. They're one and done. We know that. We know that. But you can still learn a lot from a basketball standpoint. You can still learn a lot as an athlete, as a player, how to be a good teammate, how to hone your craft, how to be just a better competitor. What it takes to win a championship. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, to win a championship in college is a lot harder, in my opinion, than the pros. In the pros, you play a best of 5 or best of 7. You have a bad day, you have another chance tomorrow, unless you're in a game 7 or elimination game. March Madness, they put nothing but elimination games. Every game could be your last. That kind of pressure teaches you a lot. You can take a lot from that 1 year, even though they shouldn't have to go. It shouldn't be mandated. But with the rule as it is, you might as well take advantage of it, and it could be helpful to you. And again, it does, whether you're looking out for yourself or not, and every player has the right to look out for themselves. But listen, and I know there might be a lot of people that understand if he didn't play. Duke fans wouldn't, but there'll be a lot of other people that would, including those that are pushing for him to do this, okay? But I'm going to say this right now. The majority of people would look at this and go, that makes you look bad. Because you're putting yourself and your career ahead of your team. And I know in this day and age, in professional sports, I often put the business portion of it ahead of everything else. Every one of these players is essentially a businessman. They look out for their own brand. I get that. And they like to facilitate things, and it's a different landscape now than it was 10, 15 years ago. I get that. But still at the heart of sports is winning. And championships. And doing that as a team and coming together and gelling together and going on that journey together. The competition. That's the heart of it. That's the reason you should. That's the number one reason you should do it. If you're not doing it for that reason, if it's just about the money and the business part of it, then forget it. Then there's no hope for sports in general, and eventually you're going to drain all the fun out of it. But there has to be that part. That still has to be the central part of it. I still believe it is for most players. Otherwise, why do it? I don't think this is going to be an issue. I think Zion's. I do not think Zion's going to stop playing. I imagine they'll probably keep him out for maybe a week. But the fact that so many people, even before last night, were he shouldn't play. I mean, come on. Again, how it makes him look, how it looks to how how what it does for him and his teammates, the opportunities that he would be leaving on the table, the experiences, the opportunity to go out there and learn and become a better player and learn to play and deal with that kind of pressure of single elimination. I mean, come on. I'm sorry. And again, that's like telling a free agent in any sport, well, you're going to be a free agent and you're leaving a lot of money on the table. What happens if you get hurt? You shouldn't be playing the rest of this year. Shut it down. I don't care if you're going for a championship. Shut it down. You're going to be a free agent. If you get hurt, you now have a chance to make that kind of money. You don't get a chance to make a max contract. You don't have a chance to make a $300 million contract because, well, you go out there and you get hurt. Well, then you're done. Your value's gone. Screw winning a championship. Screw all that. Because that's what you're basically saying. That anytime you have an opportunity for a new contract or a pay raise or your draft status or whatever the case may be, you're every time those opportunities are approaching, you're going to say, well, shut it down. Be afraid to play. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it sets you on a slippery slope because once one player does that, then you're going to have other players doing that. And it makes a mess. It makes everything a mess. It's a stupid thing to even suggest. And everybody that's been suggesting it, all these people I respect, a lot of professional actors I respect, Scottie Pippen, J. Lo, these people should not be suggesting it. It's stupid. It's ludicrous. And I understand partly where they're coming from on it, because they're coming at it from the athlete standpoint of, you're jeopardizing your livelihood, you're jeopardizing your ability to make this kind of money to help your family and set yourself up for life. Now, it used to be, you go to college with the idea that you stay in school long enough to get the education so that if you do get injured, then you have a fallback. But I understand the point of now you should be able to just jump up from high school in or go whenever you want to go. That should be your choice. I get that. But there are other options should you not. Okay, should you get an injury, should things not pan out your way and you can't play, whatever sport you play anymore. There are other options. That's what going to college can help you with. But again, I get it. Some of these players, their family situation, their economic situation, I get it. And I don't begrudge them that. I think they have a right to be able to make that decision on when they want to go, when they want to go. But it really, really got under my skin. I haven't paid much attention to it the last couple weeks, but it came to the forefront today because of everything that happened last night. It really, really angered me and frustrated me to hear so many people suggest that he sit down the rest of the year. Because if you make a commitment, you stick to it. I don't care. And you'll be letting yourself down, you'll be letting your team down, you're letting your coach down, and you're bypassing experiences that could really help. You've already gotten to February. Why would you quit now? When it's about to get into the postseason, when you can raise your brand, maybe you can't get drafted any higher, but you can raise your brand, your notoriety. Think about this. You go into the NBA, if you're Zion Williamson, you go into the NBA. Let's say he sits the rest of this year, goes into the NBA. Things don't pan out. Doesn't win any championships. Maybe his career doesn't as good as we all thought it would be, which I doubt that would be that case, but just saying, hypothetically. In 4 years, he's out of the league. You got nothing. You got to go back to the drawing board, right? Let's say he doesn't sit the rest of this year for Duke. Let's say he plays. They win a national championship, and the same thing happens to him in the NBA. Things don't pan out. Never wins a championship in the NBA. Doesn't become that player in the NBA that we all expect him to be. Back to the drawing board. No where he's going to go. Maybe he spends 5 or 6 years in the league, and that's it. Here's the thing. He at least has that national championship run. It could open doors for him, and also he has something. He has something to his legacy. Look at Carmelo Anthony. I know he's had a Hall of Fame type career, but he won that national championship series. He's probably not going to win a championship in the NBA, but he has that national championship series, something that a lot of guys don't have. He always has that. At least you have something. You have that memory. You have that legacy, that legend. That's what you have. So that's important. I think that's important. And he's bypassing all of that. if he sits down. I mean, I don't think I doubt very highly he's going to, but man, I wish people would think about these things before they go ahead and shoot their mouths off and act like it's a simple thing. Oh, just sit down and there's nothing to it. You're not losing anything by sitting down. Yeah, you're losing a lot. You're losing a lot. It's not just about the money. There's other things too. But like I said, you can get hurt in a lot of other ways. There are many ways you can get hurt. You only have to step foot on the floor for a game to get hurt. You can't live in a bubble. It's bottom line. So we'll see where the Zion stuff goes, how long he's out, what happens with him. Again, I expect him to play. I'm going to guess they won't play Saturday at Syracuse. I'm imagining he'll be out like a week, maybe more. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely a very, something that you never really seen before last night, and crazy stuff, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see him play in that game last night, because that's one of those games you circle and be like, wow, as a player, it's a memory that you never forget. You talk about Jordan in the North Carolina Duke games and all the other big players that played in that rivalry, and the memories and all the big highlights. It's a missed opportunity, and it sucks that who knows if he's even playing the North Carolina game in 2 weeks. But it sucks that he didn't get the chance to play in that game, but it's what it is. It's a letdown, but you know what? You just hope, again, that he's all right. It seems like he will be. And we'll go from there, and we'll see what happens with him. So, all right, with that being said, it's time to get off the air, because who knows what else is going to happen tonight. I've had a barking dog. My dog had to go. My dog's been want to make her presence felt in this show tonight, for sure. So before we have any technical issues or any other issues that arise, let's get off the air here. Let's wind down. As always, the show might be over. It's not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing to our show. Continue to have your voice heard, and it's your feedback, your questions about the show and the scheduling of the show, topic ideas, or breaking news on sports, entertainment, or wrestling that you want us to cover. Any things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight401 for anything to tweet on our show. And of course, as always, you can find us on Facebook. You search In the Spotlight 401 on Facebook. Then make sure that you like our fan page once you find it, once you're on it, so you can interact with us, know what's going on with the show, and all that cool, fun, nifty stuff. Again, follow us on social media so you know what's going on with the show, know if there's any postponements or delays, because that's the only place we can really post them in between shows. And so that you can also interact with us and all that stuff that's important and, again, fun and vital to our show. So make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter so you can have access to all things in the spotlight and more. 2 ways to give it a show. Look back at class guests. So you can stream us anytime on YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 401 on YouTube, and once you do, you'll be taken to our show page where you'll find every episode we ever produced. For YouTube, that's every episode mid-October of 2015, all after tonight's current episode. Those episodes are available for you to watch anytime you want, for you to stream anytime you want. So search for In the Spotlight 401 and check us out on YouTube, and you can stream us and those episodes anytime you wish. If streaming's not your thing, maybe for you to listen to us rather than see us on screen, or listen to us on the go, maybe interested in older episodes of the show. If any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411, and when you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites. We have access to every episode we ever produced in over 8 years been doing the show. So it's every episode from original Blog Talk Radio run, every episode from our talk show run, of course, all of our YouTube episodes transferred into audio format for your convenience. Every episode we've ever done in audio format for your convenience. All episodes listed in order from the most recent, that being tonight's, way back to the oldest, way back in October 2010. Every episode available for you to listen to anytime you want. Whether you miss an episode, want to check out an episode again, want to look back at an old episode from way back when, or maybe you're a new fan and want to check out older episodes just for the first time, or maybe you're keeping up on current episodes. Whatever the case would be, you can do all that and more on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Search for In the Spotlight 401. So Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, your way to keep it the show, and look back at classic episodes. Search for In the Spotlight 411, and just search for In the Spotlight 411. Shout out to my co-host Mike, not here with us tonight, but he'll be back with us on Tuesday. Hope everything's going well for him. I want to thank myself for an okay show, pat myself on the back. And thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that'll be watching, listening to this later in archive, thank you to you as well. I say okay show because it's too many interruptions. I felt like it kind of derailed things, so I apologize. It's not my dog's fault. She had to go out. Can't do anything about it, but she had the barking fit too. It sometimes happens. I don't know, for those of you that have dogs out there, sometimes when they go outside into the cold air, into the wind, they get crazy, and then it takes them a while to calm down. I think that's pretty much what happened because she's calmed down now. Figures the show's over now. She calmed down, but she's fun. I love her. She's good, but things happen sometimes. That's what happens when you do a podcast live at home. Things happen. We don't have commercial breaks, and without a co-host, what am I supposed to do? So thank you for your patience and understanding with the delays and interruptions tonight. I appreciate them. So yeah, I didn't do this on Tuesday, but I should do that. I want to do it tonight. Shout out to my little girl. She turned a year old officially yesterday. We had the party last week. I remember a year ago I took a sabbatical because my wife gave birth. So it's been a quick year. It's been a very quick year. But she turned a year old yesterday, and God bless her. She's amazing, and I love her dearly. So I wanted to kind of throw a shout out to her and a happy birthday to her. And I made a point to mention a lot lately. I mentioned a couple times this week. Sorry, I'm just kind of stuttering here, but it's getting late. So I made a point to mention, I don't usually talk, and I wasn't even going to do this, but I feel like doing it. And people have been asking, I'm still getting people asking me about this, so I'm going to mention it. People have been asking me about, they said, well, you said a lot of things been going on with your family, and Tuesday there was a lot of things, and now you said that again today. Is everything okay? I do have a relative. I have two. Well, it was a relative on my wife's side, her sister, and then on my side, my cousin's dad. My cousin's dad is in really bad shape. He's in ICU. He's had a really bad infection. He's got a lot of other problems going on. He's in really bad shape. So for those of you wondering, he could use your prayers and your thoughts. So please don't hesitate. He needs them. He's in very, very bad shape. So that's been rough. And then my wife's sister has been in some pain. She has a condition known as sphincter of Oddi, which is something that a lot of people don't know about. Doctors are often don't really know much about it, but it involves a great deal of pain. And she's in the hospital. It's been a long time she's been in the hospital for, but she's in the hospital and she's in a great deal of pain. And so if you want to send some prayers and thoughts her way, that would be appreciative as well. So I'd be appreciative as well, because that's a lot of stuff going on with the family and stuff. So for those that are wondering, that's been what's been going on. There's been a lot of phone calls back and forth. It's been kind of a crazy week in that regard. So so that's been on my mind too. So if I'm jumping around and I seem a little more tired than usual and stuff, that's why. Kind of in a nerve-wracking period of time. So yeah. I forgot to mention this earlier in the show. I was going to talk a little bit about the plans that are upcoming for our show, because we've been talking about these for months, and I mentioned that I'd talk about it more on Thursday. But once I added the Zion Williamson stuff, I decided, that's another thing that I kind of cut from the show. I said, let's just wait till next week on that. So we'll wait on next week on that. I'll give you all the insight into what's going on. It makes more sense, because there's a few things I wasn't going to announce, but I think I might be able to announce next week. So it makes more sense to delay it anyway, so I can announce a lot more things than just what I was going to announce. So, so with that being said, that is it for tonight. I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great weekend, and a great start to your week next week. Again, thank you for your patience, understanding for all the delays tonight. 2 shows next week: Tuesday, sports and wrestling; Thursday, entertainment. So we'll cover all the big sports stuff on Tuesday. College basketball, bubble watch, any other big sports stuff we have to cover, we'll cover. Any big wrestling stuff, we'll cover. Next Thursday, entertainment, box office beat. Hopefully, we'll bring back the TV highlights. We'll talk about what's coming up on the show as far as the future plans go, the fallout from the Oscars, and who knows what else. Anything else from sports entertainment we have to cover, we will. So that's what's coming up next week. So until next week, again, have a great weekend. Everybody stay safe. We'll see you back here for our next show next Tuesday. That's February the 26th, broadcasting and streaming live here on YouTube at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, a good night, everybody.